Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another video. Finally, I've had some sort of a writer's block. I couldn't really think about a topic that's worth making video about, but finally I have one. And in those 2 days where I was blocked by my creativity, pretty much, I finally got Guild Wars 2 to work again, and I found the second thing I absolutely hate about that game, and that's the matchmaking in PvP, in random PvP, because there isn't one. So you end up in a team that's somewhere around rank 5 against a team that's 50 across the board, and you just get annihilated because you're too bad. That's the worst kind of loss. You know, losing because you know you're just too shit to do anything about it. But yeah, that's the second thing I absolutely hate about Guild Wars 2. But today we're not here to talk about Guild Wars 2, well, kinda. We're here to talk about World of Warcraft, and more specifically, world bosses, and how shite the world bosses in World of Warcraft are. And let's be honest, they are shite. They are too easy, they drop good loot, they drop a lot of loot, and you're pretty much required to run them, even though they are loot piñatas for idiots. You are required to run them if you want to gear up. Now, pardon me if this sounds weird, but the difficulty of bosses in World of Warcraft at the moment is World Boss, LFR, Flex, Normal, and Heroic. Yet the gear progression, the quality of gear you get, is LFR, Flex, then World Boss, then Normal, and then Heroic. How? How is this possible? How can you have better loot from a world boss, which is a loot piñata, than from LFR? And LFR is bad enough. But at least, if you have a raid filled with complete morons, you will die in LFR. You can't die, you can't wipe on a world boss. Not on these world bosses at least. You know, before that, it was possible, you know. If you were shit, if your raid was shit, you would wipe on a world boss. You know, just look at Kazakh. You know, that was a doom fest. You know, Kazakh in vanilla, yeah, that was one hell of a doom fest. It was just death everywhere, death and pain and suffering. But nowadays, you just die, then you resurrect, and you, well, that's pretty much it, isn't it? You might as well just run in, hit him with your beautiful hammer of garrosh slaying, and then you die, and then you can stand around as a ghost. And you will still get loot. That's not okay. And we all know that one douchebag, that one freaking douchebag that gets really lucky on the first week. We all have that one guy we know. In my case, it's a girl, actually. But I did, the first week Siege of Orgrimmar came out, I did a lot of bosses. We did a lot of freaking bosses. I think we got up to Klaxi on the first day. You know, normal mode, we just ran up to Klaxi. I really do think, maybe not, but I think we just ran up to Klaxi. And I didn't have a single tier piece. This girl goes and kills Celestials. And surprise, surprise, her tier set bonus drops. You know, she gets the tier set. And she uses a coin, and she gets a second piece of that tier set. Without stepping foot in the raid where it's supposed to drop. Just by running in, you know, bashing the boss in the face with her garrosh slaying hammer, she got better loot than I did from an entire Siege of Orgrimmar run. Does that sound fair? And, you know, this is just PvE. What about PvP? You know, PvPers gathering honor and conquest and rating. I don't know. I don't do PvP. But all this stuff you're gathering, and then some douchebag does Celestials, and he gets more gear than you for just grinding battlegrounds for 2 or 3 hours. By just being there for 5 minutes, hitting the boss in the face once, and then standing around like a ghost, he gets better gear than you for 2 hours of work. That's not okay. Okay? And I didn't even talk about the difficulty, you know? Nalak, the previous tier world boss. What was it, tier 14? I think? Throne of Thunder? Was that 14 or 15? Are we on tier 16 or 15? I am confused. Anyway, Nalak. My friend had to do the quest with Nalak, you know, the legendary quest, and she needed help. And before I got there, they killed Nalak with 3 people. They had a tank, they had a healer, and they had a DPS. 3 people, and they killed a fucking world boss. Madness! This is not Sparta. This is just madness. Now, before I start pointing fingers towards different MMOs to draw comparisons, I would like to highlight 2 world bosses. First of them is Ordos. Ordos is not a face rollable world boss, let's just say. You know, the tactic isn't too innovative, you know. Just stack up under him, don't stand in fire, and run away with bomb. You know, that's a vanilla level of boss design, but okay, you know. At least, if you have too many morons, you will die. The second one, which was the best, was pre-nerf Undasta. That was amazing until Blizzard went, oh my god, all these fucking idiots are dying over and over again. They are so bad, oh my god, they need to kill it, they're gonna unsubscribe. And they nerfed the shit out of it. Undasta was awesome. On my server, it was just 100 people fighting this massive fuck of dinosaur. And just dying over and over and over and just trying to get back and resurrect. And it was a desperate struggle to finish every time. It was amazing. That was an amazing boss fight. You know, it was slightly overtuned, let's just say, but that made it fun. And that was awesome. You just saw streams of people, skeletons everywhere. Everyone was like, oh my god, what's going on? Everyone's dying. That was insanely good. That was a lot of fun, but then Blizzard went, oh, fuck it. You know, everyone has to do it. And they nerfed it to all hell. But even though Undasta was so overtuned, you know, if you didn't have an insane amount of DPS, she would start one-shotting everyone. Just AoE one-shots all over the island. It was insane. But even though this happened, it was so overtuned, people kind of adjusted. You know, if you want to do Undasta, you better be in a guild group or in a raid. You can't just run in and smash it in the face on your own because you will die. You know, so later on, as Undasta was out for, I don't know, 2 weeks, let's just say, you start seeing groups around Undasta summoning people. And those were guild groups. You know, someone would go, oh my god, Undasta just spawned. You know, that was before all the world bosses respawn as fast as fucking kobolds in Elven Forest. Ridiculously stupid, by the way. Someone would go, oh my god, Undasta respawn. And every guild on my server would go, okay. They would assemble a massive raid. They would go there with Warlock, and they will start summoning peeps in. And after 5 minutes, you just saw a massive battle line of players. 15 guild raids just scattered around Undasta. And they were discussing which tank is the best. Who pulls Undasta? And everyone knew that if you ninja pull Undasta, even if you evade it, you're gonna end up in about 100 ignore lists and have fun raiding after that. And that's a really good douchebag filter, by the way. That's something we desperately need as a community, some sort of a douchebag filter. And thanks to all these guild raids, you know, everyone can join at that point, because you have a solid core of players that can kill Undasta no matter what. Even though the boss was horrendously overtuned, and if you didn't have a massive amount of DPS, it would start one-shotting people. The community held together, and we just made a bunch of raid groups, and every time that bloody dinosaur spawned, we stomped it to the ground. And everyone got loot. Even the random guys just running around collecting bones on the island. They're like, oh my god, a big dinosaur, I'm gonna kill it. And they would join in, and they would get their loot. And that was a good way to do a world boss, but then, you know, Nerf Hammer and everything went to shit there. Because Undasta was no longer a dangerous dinosaur. It was not a threatening world boss. You know, it just was a world boss. And that's sad. Undasta was awesome. That was an amazing world boss. And the mechanics weren't that great, but the general feel of the boss, that it was actually dangerous. People were dying everywhere. If you screw up, well, that's it. You're dead. It's not the most creative failure state. Wipe is the least creative failure state, but it's a failure state. It's better than what we have with Celestials, where it's just, well, if you have 5 people that know what they're doing, that boss is gonna die. And more people they just add more hit points to the boss, so it just takes longer if they're shit. So, it's kinda shit. But wow, that was a long run. Bloody hell, 11 minutes. So now is the time to start pointing towards different MMOs. And I would really like to point towards Guild Wars 2 and their world boss design, but that's not fair. Because in World of Warcraft, these bosses are designed to be loot piñatas, to give people that can't do raid and shouldn't have this gear that feeling of accomplishment, that they have the same gear after beating a boss for 5 minutes after hitting the boss once. They need to have the same satisfaction as someone who spends 8 hours a week raiding, which is just ridiculous. That's why they are there. That's why they drop such a good loot. Because all those, "Mom, but I'm just 12 and I can't do the raid. Can you talk to Uncle Blizzard for me?" Kiddos need to have shinies. And that might sound stupid as a reason for something like that, but that's why they are there. That's actually the reason why the world bosses drop the loot they drop and why they're so disgustingly easy. That's the reason. How stupid does that sound? But Mom, I'm just 12 and Uncle Blizzard la-di-da. That's why the bosses are there. That's why they are there. That's why the loot is so good. It's disgusting, isn't it? But let's get back to the topic. So, Guild Wars 2, why it's not fair to compare those two? Because, first of all, Guild Wars is a different game. It's more World of Warcrafty than it used to be in beta, but it's still a different game for a different demographic. But the world bosses there are much better because they are the raid content. That's their raid content. These big world bosses in Guild Wars 2, that's what ArenaNet presents as the end game raid content. And they are designed as such. They are designed as raid bosses. Let's take a look at the very last one, the jungle worm fight. The big 3-headed worm. So, this boss fight, which is a world boss, it's a dynamic event, is designed for 3 groups of people that have somewhere between 30 to 50 people. Okay? This world boss is actually designed for a group of 150 people. Yeah, that's right. 150. Suck it. So, the way this boss fight needs to be done, there is a whole tactic to this. You need those 3 groups. You need to cut off the worm's head at, kind of the same time. And then you need to kill the worm heads. And the worm heads are jumping all over the zone. So you need to run after them. And you need to kill them within seconds. Like you have 10 seconds or 15 seconds to kill the heads. Or something ridiculous like that. Do you know what happens when you don't? Just take a guess. Take a wild stab in the dark. Well, you failed. You failed to kill the world boss's heads in time, and you failed to coordinate 3 groups of 50 people. You know what happens? The boss just fucks off. It's not there anymore. It just left because you suck. That's right. That's a failure state. It's not just, you died. No, it's you fucked up, and the boss is not impressed, so he fucked off, and he will return in 2 hours. Congratulations. You just wasted a lot of your time because you're not good enough. You're too shit, so you can try in 2 hours. That is a failure state, ladies and gentlemen. Not just you died, that's boring. Just, no, you screwed up, the boss is not impressed, you failed to do something, so the boss just left. He's gonna be back in 2 hours. Now, I think I forgot to mention that these 3 worm heads, or these 3 worm bodies that you need to, divide your groups in between, are in different places in the zone. So it's not just three groups on top of each other beating 3 dudes that stand next to each other. No, it's actually 3 groups scattered around the zone, and yeah, you need to coordinate them. 150 people. And you know what? Even though that game is known to be a lot more casual than World of Warcraft, people still kill that boss. People are willing to spend days there to kill that boss. 150 people. They are willing to stay there for a week, wiping on this boss or failing to do it. And what's the reward? Well, you might get a pet, or a good weapon skin, or an armor skin. Maybe you get a precursor, but people are mostly there to get the achievement and to get the pet and maybe a cool looking skin. You don't get better loot just because you killed that boss. No, that's not how it works. You might get a better loot for you, but you might not, and people still do it. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is playing the content because it's fun, not for the reward. The reward is a nice side effect, and no doubt there is a bunch of people that want the reward, but most of the people are just there because it's fun. And that's what it comes down to, isn't it? Fun. That's the deciding factor. That's the biggest difference between the world bosses in WoW and Guild Wars 2, aside from the Guild Wars 2 world bosses being endgame and the WoW world bosses being loot pinatas. Lately I feel like the content in WoW is driven by rewards too much. And I dare to say that at least 20% of the entire WoW population is not having fun while playing the content. They are playing the content to get rewards, and they are not having fun. And that's not just a problem of MMORPGs. Just look at first-person shooters, online first-person shooters. What the hell happened to them? This cancerous tumor that is the progression system in every fucking first-person shooter. I want to play the game. I want to have fun with all the weapons. I don't want to unlock them. But, I don't understand this. But then CSGO comes out, and I'm like, yes! Finally a first-person shooter where I don't have to spend a fucking year unlocking a weapon that I want to try out and I might not even like. And people go, well, there is nothing to do in the game. There is no progression. How about you play the fucking game because it's fun, morons? And now, don't get me wrong. I know why it's there from a company standpoint. This progression ladder. It's there to kind of force players to get invested in the game. Because when you have a game like Call of Duty and you have everything unlocked, people try out the weapon, then they realize that it's the same bloody thing as the last one, and they stop after a week. Now, when you have a progression and those people want a certain weapon, you gate it with this stupid progression ladder. So, even though people are not having fun playing the game, they want that weapon, and they won't stop until they get it, until they at least try it out. But by the time they try it out, they are invested. Because they've spent too much time unlocking this weapon, it feels like a waste to go, this weapon is shit, I'm not gonna use it. They will stay. They will stick because they've spent so much time unlocking that stupid weapon, they won't leave. That's how these games survive. These systems are not there for you to have fun with. They're there to keep you playing long enough, because you want to unlock a weapon, so you get invested and then you don't leave. That sounds horrible, doesn't it? But that's why it's there. It's not there for you to have fun. Are you mad? And back in my day, you damn kids skateboarding on the sidewalks. Companies did it differently. When I was younger, a game would hook you in. It would hook you in just because it was fun. So you would buy a game, you would play, you'd be like, oh, I like this. This is good. And you would keep playing, and eventually you would get invested. And then you would leave. That's how games work. But game companies are scared. So they force you to get invested, and that's horrible, I like playing games because they're fun. Weird, right? What a weirdo. I know.